to her son, Trent. Trent was medically fragile throughout his life, requiring total care. Trent has since passed into spirit on March 6th, 2024, at the age of 13 years old. So it hasn't been long at all. It's only been, about 6 months or so, shorter than 6 months. So let's welcome Nichole, please. And thank you for being with us. Can we please start off with your story with Trent's birth and his diagnosis? Thank you, Nichole.
Well, he was born at 32 and a half weeks, and he stayed in the NICU for a little while. Um, it was about 3 weeks, and we didn't really know there was anything going on with him at the time. He had a sideline feed on his side, which is actually pretty normal for preemies.
Yeah.
And he was discharged that way, having to eat on his side. And they said, oh, give it, a week and, up to a month, and you should be able to eat fine normally.
Yeah.
And so we didn't really think much of it. We took him into his doctor's appointments. We saw a pediatrician at the time, and I kept on bringing up the fact that he's not meeting his milestones. He's very far behind. He's not even able to keep his head up. And the pediatrician sort of dismissed me, said, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I do. I have an older daughter. She was born at 27 weeks. So I did know, that preemies were behind on their milestones, but he was even more so. And I continued to feed him on his side, and they actually brought him in for a swallow study. And, when about the age of 1, because they were like, oh, it's fine. His swallowing is okay. It because he wasn't aspirating at that point.
Right.
And so they, pushed me off and stuff. And then when he got about, I think it was about 14 months, then I finally said, either send me somewhere where they know what's going on, to check him for, whatever the heck is happening. Because I said, this is not normal. There's something going on with him. And then the doctor actually said, well, we see this a lot with moms that keep their kids in the car seats all the time.
Hmm.
And I obviously was not doing that. And I told him I wasn't doing that. It was it oh sorry that my screen changed, did it? Anyway, yeah, so
Can
we
you see
were
me?
sent to, yeah, I can still see you. So
Okay,
we
go
were
ahead.
sent to a bigger hospital in Iowa, in Iowa State or Iowa City, and that there were specialists there, and they first looked at him and they said it was obvious there was something wrong with him, and because his eyes were farther apart than the typical, I guess, child, and then his line on his hand was all the way across, and they said that that was indicative of some sort of genetic abnormality.
Right.
And they said there's obvious other things going on too. And they go, I'm surprised they didn't catch it at birth. They should have caught this, that there
Yeah.
was, something genetic going on with them. And of course they didn't. And I didn't know this, but they told me that the pediatrician had called CPS on me to cover his butt, apparently, because he missed all of these things,
Oh,
you know?
wow. Okay. Yeah. That's
Mhm.
that's always, unfortunate when they try to do things like that. Gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thanks.
if this,
I didn't know, but I guess it's quite common for special needs parents to get CPS called on them for, lots of different things. They're not meeting their milestones and stuff like that.
right,
You know, if they're not, if they don't see that there's something going on with him genetically, or, from because we found out later that his brain stem was failing, and it wasn't, I guess it's normally because of some sort of like a car accident or something. And they did a ton of testing on him. They x-rayed him and MRI'd him and CT scanned him, and they did every single test you could think of. They did metabolic testing, and they figured out, his neurologist figured out that some genetic code must have been off for his brainstem to spontaneously fail,
right,
and that he might gain a few um, milestones and then lose them, because he started having seizures at almost 2 years of age,
hmm,
and he had status seizures, and his first seizure was 2.5 hours long,
wow.
and he I'm sorry, I don't it's really really emotional still, everything that
Yeah,
happened
it's
to him,
okay.
everything that
It's
he
okay to
went
cry.
through,
Yeah, yeah.
that he was taken over to Storm Lake, and they prepared us that he probably wouldn't survive if they couldn't get his seizures to stop. And they actually had to they gave him multiple doses, of medicine to try to stop the seizure, and it would break through and start again. And so they had to knock him out completely and put a breathing tube in to keep his heart from beating so fast that he would have a heart attack or something. And they sent him down, or they sent him over to Iowa City, which he had been going to, for the genetic things. And, we had been going back and forth, but they said, that he might have seizures. They weren't exactly sure what it would look like, what his symptoms would look like throughout his life, but
Yeah.
that more than likely he will develop seizures. We thought that seizures were like lasted a couple minutes and then they would stop, and there would be a recovery period. I guess that's the most common. And status seizures, where they don't stop on their own and they continuously break through medicine and stuff, is not as common as the normal seizures. But they gave us rescue medicine to give him if he were to have seizures, and then oh gosh, we were doing testing, metabolic testing, and just every test you could think of. We actually went through and did testing on us too. They did DNA um, sort of mapping on me and my husband,
Yeah.
because they were trying to figure out what, I actually do have a gene that on the, I can't remember which one it was, but it's a partial deletion, but me and Trent share that one. So they said that obviously that's not the cause of it. They said that, obviously medical science hasn't caught up enough yet to figure it out, because they did testing on him for every single seizure disorder and then every disease after that that could cause seizures, and they were all negative. And
Wow.
they're like, okay, so we know we're going to test them for like this certain one. Every single appointment we went to, we're going to test them for this one, and this is what happens with this one. And like, you would want him to have this one, or you would not want him to have this one. So we're hoping it's not that.
Right.
So it was just a ton of appointments. And
So, at what age was Trent that the doctors had finally had a diagnosis for you?
4. He
Or
was 4.
what diagnosis was that?
That was the brainstem failure, and it was triggered by some sort of um, genetic mutation of a DNA strand. They don't know exactly which one because they said that science hasn't caught up enough. They know very few. They know about very few DNA strands right now.
Right.
There's so many. They said that they don't know what their purpose are. You know,
Yeah.
so
Um,
that's his neurologist is a top pediatric neurologist in the country, and she actually left shortly after that diagnosis to go to Denver because she was so sought after.
wow. Okay.
As
Gosh. So at 4 years old, what did they tell you? I mean, did you know that he was going to be just medically fragile throughout his life from then on? I mean, that was kind of like the confirming diagnosis that you got that you knew, right?
they told us that he was going to die. They said that with brainstem failure, unfortunately, it's like a key to a car where you turn it and it goes off one day. It's He will have multiple infections, respiratory infections, and he'll have a lot more seizures, and that he will continuously lose skills. They
Okay.
said that they've only seen this. Trent's the third one that they've ever seen in the United States. I don't know. I mean, there could be more, but we were told at the time that he's the third person they've seen this happen to,
Okay.
and that
So,
it's. Oh, I'm
wow.
sorry. I didn't.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask. So by the time Trent was 4 years old, you were pretty much told that, this he may die at any time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She said that most kids that have this don't live past the age of 14. They gave us 10 years, and he
Okay.
lived up to that. It was a month before his 14th birthday, and then he passed away.
Right. And again, so Trent did pass away on March 6th, 2024. Can you please tell us what that's been like for you? I mean, the grieving process, I mean, what was that like for you? What happened?
Well, he was having a lot more symptoms. Beginning July of the following year, was having more respiratory symptoms and having mucus plugs. And he didn't have a trach, but it was like it just sort of built up and he just couldn't cough up those mucus plugs. So I
Okay.
would have to do the vest and rolling back and forth to try to get the mucus plug to come up. And that happened more often. It was a gradual thing from that time on. Um,
Okay.
his oxygen level dropped to the 40s a few times. And we actually, I guess, well, maybe me, I think I was in denial. I really didn't think he was going to pass away. I thought that this was just going to be our life. If his oxygen level dropped far and it was a mucus plug, I could get it up. If it was pneumonia, we called the ambulance and I'd be able to take care of him. And yes, it would be hard, but I was more than willing to do hard. I have, I guess it's worse for me having to live this life without him, but I know that he's better off on the other side because it wasn't just that. He stopped absorbing food and he stopped absorbing his medicines, and he started to have bed sores because his body wasn't getting the nutrition no matter how much I gave him, no matter what I tried to do. I I worked and worked and worked. I hardly slept to try to get him to be okay, to be
Yeah.
comfortable, to not have those symptoms, those problems. And every single issue that he had, and a new problem that arose, I'm like, okay, let's tackle this. We're going to make this better. We'll get you feeling better. We'll do anything we have to do to make you feel better, to not have these problems. And then I thought, oh, because I had this unrealistic idea that if I turned him enough, if I gave him more supplements, if I, monitored his vitals 24 hours a day and didn't sleep, that I could prevent death. I could prevent this.
Yeah.
I could keep him from being in pain. I could keep him from suffering.
Right. Now, I know we
It
talk
was,
about, you know, there's different stages of grief. We usually talk about, I mean, there's, you know, five, kind of phases. But I think there's more than that. And I think there can be more than one. And, there's shock and denial is number one. And number two is anger. Number three is guilt. Number four is depression. Number five is hope and acceptance. Um, can you tell me a little bit about the phases of grief that you're going through now? It just being, you know, not even 6 months.
uh, I go through every one of them several times a day, actually. It's, I cry, I scream, I go, I can't live without you. And then the next minute I go, well, that was a selfish thought, and then I go, oh, I could have done this, I could have done better. Or, if I didn't sleep at all, I could have prevented this. I actually, you feel crazy. You really do.
Yeah,
It's,
the grieving process can feel so crazy, and I know that we could feel all of these phases at once. They could interchange, they could be um, three at the same time, or I mean, there's so many multiple emotions and feelings that go along with that. And I just wanted, to kind of touch in to see where you're at and see how you're doing right now, and you know what you're doing to kind of uh, go through this process, and what that is like for you.
I do sleep a lot. I get a lot of advice. A
Mhm.
lot of people tell me that, oh, well, it's been 3, 4 months since he passed away. You need to put his stuff away and move on. I'm like, so act like he never existed?
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel for you because I lost my son, my medically fragile son Jaden, at the age of 10 in 2012, and there is no time frame for that. I mean,
Mhm.
especially people telling. For anyone to say that is very difficult because they're not going through what you're going through. And I think grief is very unique, and it's individual to that person. And there's no time frame for that, except
Yeah,
for yourself and when you feel ready. So I think sometimes people mean well, but those kind of comments don't help. They just don't. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. And then you get the people that just don't know what to say, so they pull away from you completely. I had
Yeah.
some of that happen when he was little and he started going through his medical problems because you can't relate. You can feel sorry for the person. There there's some of that. And then there's some that want to help, that are absolutely wonderful, and depending on, I guess, what stage you're in, the people are there for you or they're not. I
Hmm.
had great, like, I've noticed that the people that were there for me when Trent was alive are not there now. They
Yeah.
see, like, I post a lot of stuff about how much I miss Trent and how some days I feel like, I died with him, and why didn't they just bury me with him? You know?
Yeah. That's a
And
it's a very common feeling, when we lose our children, they leave the physical body and they go into spirit. There's almost like a piece of us that feels like has died with them. I felt the same way. So that's very um it's such a valid feeling because that's how it feels. And then when
yeah,
people can't acknowledge that, it's almost like you're in a world of your own, like no one else
exactly.
understands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I understand, like, there's a lot of special needs parents that after they're even 10 years later, I'm seeing a part of like some of the groups that I'm on Facebook, and they say, I know it's been 10 years, but I still miss my son or daughter. And they were, they meant so much to me. And the comments, I know they mean well, but saying that your child is better off dead, it doesn't, this makes me very upset.
Yeah.
Oh, they
It's
suffered when they
helpful.
were here, so it's a good thing that they died.
Wow.
To me,
Yeah,
that's like saying that their life wasn't worth anything, you know?
yes. And I understand that too. Yeah, I think some people mean well, but they're not where you're at. So however it is that they're trying to give advice, or, when they say, your child was better off dead, or that's just, it's, I think it's insensitive, as to where you're at in your stage
Yeah.
of grief. I think it can be very insensitive and unuseful or unhelpful, to us. But yeah, I just wanted to definitely give you this opportunity today to talk about it, Nichole. Our voices matter. And whether we're grieving or not, whether it's you know, a sad occurrence, death and loss of a child is very difficult. And it's just part of,
Yes.
what Jaden and I like to do, my son and I, he's in spirit. We like to be able to give others a voice, to be able to share what that grieving experience is like for them, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here today. It took a lot of courage for you to be here today and to begin to open up and talk about it. And I appreciate it. I thank you.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to just give you this space to honor Trent and to honor your own feelings and emotions and honor your grieving process. And is it okay if I kind of memorialize this video and put pictures of Trent with it and maybe post it in group?
Of course.
Awesome.
Good.
Thank you so much,
That'll
Nichole.
help a lot.
Is there anything else you would like to share with anyone else out there that is also going through the grieving process, or that maybe just started their grieving journey? Is there anything you'd like to share with them, to give them hope or acknowledgement?
Your feelings are valid, no matter what they are. The pain that you're in is real, and nobody can tell you, what to do with those feelings. And I thought that there was something wrong with me, until I talked to you, and, you're like, no, it's everything you're feeling is what you're supposed to be feeling, you know?
Absolutely. I don't think there's a time frame on missing your children. I mean, with my son, Jaden, he's been in spirit for 12 years. I miss him every day. Now, am I kind of more along the, grieving process for me individually where, I can accept, I've come to the acceptance of, his death and the loss of my son. And of course, I'm able to move on in life and accept that this has happened, but not everyone is there. There's so many different stages, but yes, even him being in spirit for 12 years, you still miss the physical body. Yeah.
Yeah,
You still,
that's yeah.
yeah, that's what it is.
I
You
miss
know,
holding his hand, and you miss, putting your head on his chest and hugging them, and you just miss it all.
yeah, touching their
Even the
skin and
even the tough times, the scary times, you miss it all.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there's going to be a day that goes by that we don't miss our children. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I want to say thank you so much, Nichole. I just want to put together kind of to be able to almost memorialize this for you and in Trent's honor and your motherhood journey with Trent. And I just wanted to say thank you for your time and for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nichole. Bye bye.
Bye.